Hi, my name is Daniela, and you are listening to the Audacious Path podcast, which is the one and only podcast that is specifically aimed at adventure creators just like you and me. Every 2 weeks, I talk to other creators within the adventure sphere, and I get tips and tricks that might help you and me grow and build our adventure creator business. Today's episode is arguably one of the most important episodes that I will ever produce. We're talking to the Cruising Kiwis, so of course they're from New Zealand, they have a special place in my heart. They've been sailing around the world for 4 years and producing videos about their adventures and putting it on YouTube. But what's profound about this episode is they really opened up about some of the struggles that they're experiencing as they try to grow their channel.
Well, some weeks I do kind of think, why are we doing this? It can be very demoralizing when you put your heart and soul into something and it just barely breaks the surface.
How their growth expectations have not been met.
And so when I started, I was like, well, I won't worry until I've made 150 videos. I've just about put out the 200, and we've made it.
But most importantly, how their background in sports has translated to being able to produce consistently every single week.
Look, we both came from sporting backgrounds where you slog for a short race in a few months' time, and then you slog for another
6
short
months.
Yeah. So yeah, we're happy to keep slogging along.
You can find them on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, The Cruising Kiwis. I would absolutely love to hear what you think of this episode as you listen along. You can tag me on Facebook or Instagram at The Audacious Path and enjoy the episode. So I went back and looked at your videos, and from the very beginning, you guys obviously put a lot of effort into that very first video. What was the process like preparing for that first video?
I was completely green to editing. So I watched a lot of YouTube videos. I was using a free editing suite thing off the internet. It's the only time I used it, and then I went to Premiere Pro after that. It kept crashing. It took me 3 weeks to edit it because I didn't know what the heck I was doing. When I think of it now, I just remember my brain was fizzing, trying to take in all these lessons I was learning and trying to make something with it.
I reckon Rachel spent, I don't know how many, literally hundreds of hours on that first episode. I reckon 400 or 500 hours. So.
But purely because I didn't know what I was doing. So it was the first time I'd ever edited. So
does anything stand out to you guys of like this worked or this was a waste of time? Because I had a lot of things like that where I was like, people said try this, try that, and now I'm like, okay, well, actually, like didn't apply to my channel. I'd love to hear more about that kind of stuff.
Well, occasionally you'll get this one person in the comments who'll say, why don't you do this? And it's one person. And I try not to listen. I do listen, but sometimes you think, but I'd be changing everything if I listen to that one person who wants you to do that. And then they'll say, can you do longer ones? So you make it longer, and then they never watch ever again. And you kind of think, well, I made it longer for you, but it's maybe not made it better for anybody else. And trying not to listen to the one voice in your comments.
It's an interesting one, actually, isn't it? One of the first things we had some advice, which was good advice, was to set up playlists. Set up a playlist. And we had no playlists at that time, and now we've got probably 6 or 7 playlists. I think that's quite a good little piece of advice. If no one has if you don't have a playlist on your channel.
Yeah. And I get quite a lot of views from my playlist, actually. Like I see they're used. So yeah.
But then somebody, that same person also recommended that we go for short videos, like 6, 7, 8 minute videos.
Yeah.
And but then we see these channels that are doing 30-minute videos getting huge numbers. And I don't know what you think, but I think sort of around 15 to 25 is a nice little window for sailing channels, not for short attention span teenagers, because we're appealing to an older audience, aren't we?
Well, it's interesting. I talk to a consultant every week, and we just go over and learn, and it's just really, really helpful. And one of the things he said is aim to make your videos 10 minutes long, because your retention is sitting around that 10-minute mark. Even though you're making videos longer or shorter, that seems to be when people start dropping off. She's like, so aim to make your videos 10 minutes long. And I did that. I tried and I couldn't get my videos down smaller. But what was interesting about the process was it made me cut out anything that was not valuable. And I just kept trimming it, trying to get smaller and smaller. And the final product ended up being one of my best performing videos. And it's definitely something that I do now, because like just trying to make it shorter got rid of anything that wasn't valuable. So
if you found that if you make a longer video, like if you have a 10-minute video, the average view time is about 5 or 6.5 minutes. If you make a 20-minute video, the average watch is about 12 to 13, 14 minutes. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, it depends on what type of content it is. If it's like I did a week at sea video and that video did so good, like retention wise, and it was 30 minutes, but then I made another 30-minute video and it didn't do well. So I think for me, at least, it's very topic dependent. And sailing like always does better than anything else. So you sailed with Sailing Zatara, which are a massive channel, and they gave you a bit of a boost. I would love to hear about how much of a boost, how much that mattered, how you guys collaborated, and how you found that collaboration. Like, were they just kind of like willing to help you guys out, or did you have to kind of work for that? Like, what did that take?
No, they were absolutely, they were super generous with by name dropping us in a few of their episodes. I mean, we were traveling with them for about 6 months
At least, yeah.
And so their kids were appearing in our videos occasionally, and vice versa. So yeah, they just did a show, and it honestly made a huge difference.
Yeah.
That the week that they mentioned us, we went up 2,000 subscribers, I think, in a week.
Wow. How did you guys meet them? How did you get that? Did you know who they were when you met them?
Yeah, we met in Fiji a year or so earlier, and
because our children are roughly the same age and into the same kind of thing, so they were hanging out with their children. And then we bumped, and then they came over. We were in Australia, and they came over to Australia, and they said, "Hey, we're going to go under the Bight. Do you want to join us?" And we said, "Yeah." So we sailed the Great Australian Bight with them, and then went up the west coast of Australia with them. And it was great, really nice, really good hanging out with them. They're very nice people, very funny, and we had a great time.
Yeah, we did. It was like we're in each other's pockets a little bit at times.
I really appreciate that they were generous, because I know that like this is one of the reasons why I'm doing this interview with you guys and other channels, is because I feel like there's so much potential to help each other out. And you guys have plans for more collaborations? Is that something that you think is worthwhile for people to pursue?
I think if you have an opportunity to, absolutely, yeah, I think it's a great thing. In fact, there's another sailing channel, I won't mention them, here in the dock actually, and I'll ask them if they might want to have an interview with you, Danielle, if you want.
Yeah.
Do you find it hard to approach collaborations at all, or does it feel very like easy to you, or is there any like recommendations for that?
They both came pretty naturally.
Yeah. It was very organic, both of those. There was no, we never had any chats about collaborations. It was just friendship.
What did you learn from them? Like, what were free range sailing in Zatara? What are some things that they were able to help you with or teach you guys?
He came on board and he gave us lots of little tidbits. I can't remember what they were. He talked about the story. He would say the story is really important, and he looked at a couple of my edits before I put them out, and critiqued them. But any individual thing other than the story, Keith was very much about the story. Make sure your story's strong.
Same. I've heard that over and over and over again. Have a good story.
Do you watch some channels and you expect a story from those channels and you kind of go, where's the story?
Well, it's interesting because, like having just interviewed Holly again, like, I don't know if you've seen any of her content, but it's very unedited. It's very raw. It's very authentic, but there's like not a lot of like transitions or like that. Like she says it takes her like 3 hours to edit one video, and I was just like, what the hell do you do that? Yeah. So I went and watched a bunch of her videos, and I think there's a couple of things that happen that relating to story is that one, there is an overarching story across several videos. So even though one video won't have one story, it's all very easily connected together. And the other one is that, and this is something that I'm studying right now. I should bring my book out, but I'm reading In the Blink of an Eye by Walter Murch. I think I might have mentioned this in the last call that we had. When I asked her about, I was like, well, how do you do your edit? She was like, I edit to the emotions and I make sure that it's going up and down and I'm pacing it. And I thought that was so fascinating because she's not really thinking of a story, but when you watch her episodes, you very quickly get pulled into the video. Like they're good videos. So one of the things that I started doing only recently is like when I go through and like watch my footage, I make note of the ones that give me an emotional reaction the first time I watch it. And then those are always the clips that I use. And then I think about like, what was I feeling? And sometimes I choose like, what am I feeling when I recorded that, and sometimes I choose like, what do I want them to feel when they watch it? But either way, there's always an emotion that I'm thinking of when I'm doing my editing, and that determines like the length of the cuts as well. So that if I want like anxiety or like excitement, then I make shorter cuts. But if I want them to like feel at peace, it'll be a longer cut or something like that, you know? Has there been a shift in your mindset around your channel at any point in time? Like, was there a point in time where you took it more seriously, or like you decided to, you know, a lot of people say like there was a point where they decided to be authentic more or something like that?
I hope we've always been authentic. We've always tried to be authentic. So that's be a bit more professional. In the beginning, it was a bit more of a laugh, and and I often portrayed Rob as this hapless fool who didn't know what he was doing, but he does. Because Rob's very good at making silly mistakes.
Yeah.
And so yeah, and so I was maybe not kind in some of my editing. I realized that wasn't helping Rob at all, and probably wasn't helping our channel, when somebody said, "What are you doing with him? He seems like a fool." And I thought, oh, I've maybe gone a bit far. So maybe don't show all up the stupid mistakes.
Like, one thing that I'm curious if this has been like your experience as well, but like for me, like YouTube's almost been like this like emotional journey, like the things I've learned about myself just by people like digging into you, you know, like you kind of like learn something by putting it all out there. Has that been, you're nodding, so it sounds like the same thing for you?
Well, yeah, because you forget how much you do put out there, and then someone who you don't know at all will come up and say, "Oh, how are you about blah blah blah," and you think, how do you know that stuff? Yeah. And then you remember, oh, because I put it out there.
So there's been a bit of growth as well. Like, obviously, like you realize that you're portraying Rob in a certain way. Has there been any other kind of like personal growth from it?
You know, I actually enjoy showing mistakes. I think
I still show mistakes.
Still show mistakes, plenty of them. Yeah. And I actually think that's kind of a big part of sailing, actually.
Yeah.
Even though we make, you know, they say you shouldn't make mistakes again, but we invariably do make some mistakes.
We try not to. In the beginning, my goodness, when we first got the boat, the amount of ropes we got around the prop was just crazy.
And they're done that. Yep.
You forget the fishing lines out there, and you drop the anchor and back up and onto that fishing line. And
it's just so much to do. And how did you guys find, like, when you got into sailing? Like, we found it to be so overwhelming trying to start a channel and go sailing full time. And now looking back, like, I don't know if I would advise someone to start a channel and then go sailing. I think I would advise start it before you go sailing, well before. Like, how was learning and sailing?
Well, we had the boat for 4 years before we started the channel. So
I wish we'd filmed all the early stuff.
Yeah, so we'd already done quite a bit of sailing. I mean, Rob is a sailor, and he learned to sail at 12. I learned to sail when we bought this boat. And so, if I'd been trying to edit and sail at the same time, my head would have been just exploding, because it was fizzing so much. And people would try and give me advice on how to edit, and I'd be like, I can't take any more in. I'm just learning one thing at a time.
What is the hardest part about being a sailing YouTube channel?
Persisting.
Yes.
I think Rachel had a little target in mind. I think it's a lovely story, and it's about this musician called LP. Have you heard of LP?
Mm-mm.
Look it up. There's an amazing song on YouTube called, her name is LP, capital L, capital P, and the song is called Lost on You.
Lost on You.
And if you just watch it, I won't say anything more about her, but her story is amazing. She used to write songs that other people would record, including Rihanna.
Yeah.
And I introduced the song. A friend of mine showed me the song. I showed it to Rachel, and then she loved it so much she went into research this person. And LP tells the story about how it was her 120th.
Well, no, because her father, she started writing, and her father, she came from doctors and lawyers, and her father said, "You'll never make money as a singer or a writer. You should be a doctor and a lawyer." And she looked at her dad and said, "He didn't seem happy, so I didn't want to do what he was doing. This made me happy, but I wasn't successful, and because he told me I wouldn't be successful, I kind of like, oh, well, I won't be successful, but I was enjoying it." And that was important to her. And she said she wrote 150 songs before one of them became a big hit for her.
And it's this one.
And it's Lost on You. And it became a big hit in Europe. but she's American and she's still not that well known in America, but she's huge in Europe.
Greece.
And yeah, and she said, you know, so it took 150. Now she is successful. Now she does have money. But, you know, she said if it took 150 songs, it took 150 songs. And so when I started, I was like, well, I won't worry until I've made 150 videos. I'm just about to put out the 200. And we've made it.
Yeah.
But I keep going because I keep thinking, you know, maybe there'll be that one that people go, oh, that was really good, and it will grow from there.
And I thought about this a little bit after we chatted, because it sounds like, I mean, you guys, you had said that once you had the goal of hitting 100,000 subscribers, like you want to get there, and that feels like it would be success for you. But a lot of people, like when I told them that I was interviewing you, were like, oh, like I love the Cruising Kiwis, and you have a good channel compared to a lot of other channels. I would say like you're probably in the top 25% of channels, which is really, really good. Where does that goal come from of 100,000, and what advice would you give to like other creators who, you know, like setting these goals around where you go? Because it seems to me like you guys are doing really well, actually. I mean, obviously you could do better, and I feel kind of the same way, to be honest. But like, how do you somehow finding motivation still? So I'm kind of thinking out loud here. I'm just like, you're still going, you're still keeping going. You have this goal. Like, how is it all kind of tying together? How are you keep going?
Well, some weeks I do kind of think, oh, why are we doing this? It can be very demoralizing when you put your heart and soul into something and it just barely breaks the surface, you know. It doesn't do well at all, but we enjoy the process or I enjoy the process of editing. And the 100,000 was when we started. I just thought that sounds like a good figure. I don't know if 100,000 is a good figure anymore, because all the you know, at that point that 100,000 was a great. Now it seems like it's 500,000 or 1 million, and but at this point in time, if I had 100,000, I'd be pretty happy.
Yeah, I guess the reason it comes up to me is because like I was talking to some of my patrons about this, and they're like, you know, it just seems like a lot of the channels that get to be so big, like they're not actually channels I want to watch anyways. And it's funny because I feel like your kind of content is the kind of content people want to watch, but you don't really get that discoverability on YouTube until you hit that 100,000. So even if you might be the kind of content a lot of people are looking for, it's not easy to find you at this size. So
the reality is, isn't it? And I think you mentioned it last time, that you look at, first thing you do is you look at how many subs the channel's got. So, am I worth wasting my time on you guys or not? And 16,000 is not a big number. And so, you know, I mean, if I was scanning through a bunch of sailing channels, I probably would skip past us as well.
you'd be surprised though. I look at the stats of like, so there's 51 million channels, right? And like only 13% of those will be over 100,000 or something like that. Like it was a crazy small number when I looked it up. I couldn't believe how small it is. So like you guys are in the top percentage, even though it might not feel like it.
Look, we both came from sporting backgrounds where you slog for a short race in a few months' time, and then you slog for another
6
short
months.
yeah. So yeah, we're happy to keep slogging along.
So you guys know that I've gone through this attachment theory course. It's been very life-changing to me. And one of the things that I realized in the process of going through this course is that I'm used to coming first. I graduated high school at the age of 15. I graduated with my undergraduate degree by the age of 19. I spoke 2 languages by the time I was the age of 20. And then I graduated my master's degree by the age of 21. So I was always like this well ahead achiever. And part of it was because I'm homeschooled. My mom pushed me really, really hard and I excelled in everything. So when I started my YouTube channel and I didn't do very well, I had to go through this massive mindset change where I was like, you know, just because I'm not first does not mean I won't be successful. Like I might be behind others. And part of me believes this will be a strength in the end, because like I'm having to slog, and that slog are lessons that I'm learning that I can pass on. So how much do you think like your mindset, like of having to slog, is helping you guys keep going? Like obviously it seems like it is.
Certainly, I have felt the same way. It's like, I'm putting the effort in. Why am I not seeing the results? Because in sport, you put the effort in, you will get further and further ahead of your rivals. But I feel like we're just treading water half the time. And even though we're putting all this effort in, but so I know exactly what you mean. You expect to do better, but I don't know. We haven't got the secret formula.
We've got teenage boys, and they are currently looking at doing YouTube, and it's a big call in some ways because it could be really hard on their self-esteem, if you know what I mean. If they put all this energy and heart and soul, and they've seen the likes of Finn Whitaker, Zatara's son, has released his YouTube channel a few months ago, and it just went instantly to like 100,000 subscribers, like overnight. And I fear that if the boys do release that, they're going to be comparing themselves, and that's not a good thing if they're comparing themselves with other similar aged kids in their
at that age,
what they perceive as success and not success. So I have a little bit of anxiety about all that stuff. Nevertheless, that will happen eventually, and I do really hope for the best for the boys.
If you're enjoying this podcast episode, then I also recommend that you sign up for my newsletter, where every 2 weeks I share tips and tricks on how to start and grow your adventure creator business in 7 minutes or less. Now, the theory behind both this podcast and my newsletter is that a lot of information out there is not applicable to the adventure creator space. For example, you'll have these creators that just blow up, they randomly extrapolate the reasons for their growth, but they never have to test their theories. Also, the rules for growth are different depending on the size of your channel, and nobody's talking about that. And finally, a lot of the information how to grow a YouTube channel is not applicable to the adventure creator space. So in my newsletter, I provide tips and tricks that I've tried on my own channel. You can sign up using the link below or in the description, and here, go back to the episode.
I don't know, it's just a bit of a minefield, isn't it? Because it can undermine your own self-confidence, but it's really important to understand that each individual on the other side of that screen is just one person's opinion. And whether it's a positive opinion, whether they want to stay and watch an episode, it's still only one person's opinion. And I don't know, I think it's really important to not get too overwhelmed by either the success or the failure. Just do and enjoy what you're doing as much as possible.
I totally agree with that. Yes. And that's actually one of my affirmations, is being mindful of both positive feedback and negative feedback and listening to myself. I want to keep going with this theme because I think this is a really good theme that has come up in every conversation that I've had. When I talked to Holly again, she said she does not look at any other channel. She doesn't watch YouTube sailing channels at all. She never did any research, and she does not look at other people's videos, even if she's in them. She doesn't look at it. She's just like, nah, I'm good. And we were talking about it, and she was like, I just don't want to become a channel that's comparing myself and like changing my style to like fit what other people like, because I think what makes each channel unique is their personality. So the minute you start comparing yourself, you lose that authenticity. And you guys have mentioned that that's like really important to you. And that's something that I see in your videos, is that authenticity, you know? Does that resonate?
Yeah.
Actually.
I do actually watch other YouTube channels, but I look at them and I think, I don't want to do that. Some of them I do look at things and go, I do want to do that. But I don't want to be the same as anybody else. What's the point of being the same as anybody else? I want to be us. Yeah. And if that doesn't swing anybody else's, whatever, then it doesn't. But I am not my YouTube channel. I mean, I am, but I'm not, at the end of the day, I'm still me, and I can still, that thing, man's search for meaning, Viktor Frankl, have a choice whether I can get all upset because people aren't watching my channel, or I can just, so what? They haven't found us. And I wish they did, but it's not be all and end all. And if we never make it, and we get to the end of our sailing and we're still, struggling on 16,000, then so be it. I've enjoyed the process. I enjoy looking back at how the kids have grown. I enjoy looking back at seeing how far we've come as a family, and in the internet, how much we've improved with our camera work, our video, our sound, our editing, and I love the fact that I'm learning a skill.
That's what Holly said. She said, take it or leave it. Take it or leave it. Yeah. So okay. So how do you guys engage with your audience? What's your relationship like with your audience, including moving to Patreon?
we have a core like amount of people who comment every week, and we try and answer every comment, which I think is unusual for a YouTube channel, because when I look at other people's comment section, I don't know why they ever answer anybody, but we think if they have taken the time to watch us, that's their part of their week, and they've taken the time to watch, and even better, taking the time to comment, then why shouldn't we answer them? You know, I think it's rude not to answer them. So we try and answer every comment that we get, and most of them are nice. Even the horrible ones, we answer them as well.
Yeah.
Really? Oh, I just block them. Well, I have a dip for me. It's like if it's mean and cruel, then I block them. If it's constructive but maybe not said in the best way, then I'll keep it.
Yeah, we do sometimes block them, but we still answer them.
Hide them. Well, it used to be hide, but now if you hide it,
It
actually
depends.
deletes it.
When they've said rude things about our kids, we've hidden it.
Yeah, that's a tough one when it comes to your kids. So
Such
have you
a-
guys performed any experiments on your channel, or like, you know, what are some of the things that you've tried?
Oh, parodies. We did the parodies, which is a bit unusual. We did two parodies.
Yeah.
Singing parodies. We sang a song, Sound of Silence, and what was the other?
Bohemian
Rhapsody.
Yeah.
Things. Actually, I must say too, Danielle, your videos are I like quirky stuff. I mean, it's a little bit different, a little bit wacky and creative. And I've noticed you are very good at creating wacky little, like one example is you had a rabbit. This is one of your earlier ones. For some reason, just popped into mind. Did you remember when you did a rabbit? You did a little kind of a parody skit scene of a rabbit. No, I can't remember the exact joke around it, but it was hilarious. It was just so wickedly different, you know. And I thought, go you, because you were just picking a moment, and Rachel's very good at this too. I think she finds lots of humour in different scenes and situations that most might see. Yeah.
That boat tour video that we did was so much fun. I don't know if you saw that, but we like pretended like the refrigerator was like a time machine and stuff like that. It was so
Really? No,
I need to do more of that actually. I really enjoy like doing that kind of stuff, like dress up where you like have 3 versions of you and stuff like that. Like I actually, those are some of my favorite videos that I've made. So yeah, and they perform pretty well actually. People seem to like them, but you know, you get the person who's like, oh, I like to bring Sue silly. I'm like, yeah, I kind of gotta do what I gotta do, you know. So
yeah.
Well, just sometimes you feel like doing that, don't you?
Just have a bit of fun with it
at the right time. Yeah.
One of the themes that I have been researching is consistency, not just in terms of video every week or every 2 weeks or whatever you guys decide to do, but consistency in experience. And that one has been really interesting to wrap my head around, because I think one of the things that hurt my channel was that I last year didn't know what I wanted to do with it. Like I was providing like how-to information and like travel video style. And then I did like a couple of really personal ones. And I think what the description that I've heard is that you kind of give your audience whiplash, because they come for an experience that might be like super emotional, and then the next one's super lighthearted, or vice versa. And they don't get what they keep expecting to get with your videos. Would you guys be able to speak to that at all? Or has that been your experience?
Well,
Yes, we can be a bit eclectic, I think, because we just basically do, our videos are basically our journey. I thought we had set up our trip to Cambodia really well. We had been talking about we went to Cambodia because Rob's brother was killed there by the Khmer Rouge, and we'd been setting it up for months before that this is what we were going to do. It's what we bought the boat for. We were going to retrace he was a sailor. He sailed through Southeast Asia. We have the letters he wrote home in the 70s, you know, telling about the adventures he was having. So we visited some of those places, and we would introduce, you know, we would read out the letter, and then we'd go and visit that place ourselves. And I thought we'd set it up really well, that we had, you know, people kind of, it seemed in the comments that people were interested in this journey.
Yeah.
And then we went to Cambodia. I feel it's the best editing and storytelling I've done, and it flopped.
It flopped.
And it's like,
okay, we've been seeing you guys up. You guys have been with us all this time, and then most of you didn't watch the video. The actual, here we are in Cambodia. This is it.
And it was like, that's interesting.
That's such a tough one, because I can feel that it's so personal to you guys. And like
Yeah.
having watched it, I can see why. I mean, of course, you're your brother, you know, like it's personal. You want people to see that story. And I feel for you guys. I hope, I guess, like as you're speaking, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but I hope you don't feel resentment for people not watching, because I can kind of understand why, if
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
completely honest. And it's so freaking personal though. Like that was such a big thing that happened, and like what a big journey for your family to go on.
Yeah, but then
Well, the strange thing is that we'd done a couple of ones in a few years earlier, telling the story, but not being there, but telling the story. And those did really well. Still a sad story. Still, we cried. I think it was Rob actually telling those stories, and you're just literally talking. I think it was one was a TED talk and one was an interview. And those did really well, which is why I thought when you see the real deal, you're going to get a lot out of that. But it's a very sad and a very personal story. But I thought it's very informative as well. Thank you.
But back to your whiplash anecdote, I think we have followed up with a bit of whiplash, unfortunately, even though its next follow-up episode after the Cambodia one was quite successful. Actually, it's gone really well.
Yeah. Bikini
on the front. We're splitting up, a bit of a dramatic title. We're splitting up because we all went our different ways after Cambodia, but it's quite up and it's upbeat, and so it is the classic whiplash episode.
Yeah, we went
have to say.
from sad and in tears to we're go.
But I very good point. I think it's a very good point. You need a little bit of consistency in your episode to episode theming, don't you?
And one of the things that my consultant recommended was like having some kind of goal, like what you want to achieve on your channel, and like referring back to that. So like my channel, my goal moving forward is to I want to get solo females out adventuring. Like I want to get women like me out adventuring, and that is my like thing I want to do. And then I want to help other people live vicariously. I think that's just kind of a given on YouTube, you know, like I want them to live vicariously through women who are willing to be brave. And now I find myself like I keep that in the back of my mind every single episode, and it's changed things a lot. Like it's now, like, you know, I might say, oh, like, look, there's dolphins, whatever. And then instead now I'll be reflecting on like, what's it like being a female, like seeing these things, you know? And so it's changed the way I frame my story by having like one goal that I focus on. And every time I actually have it on my phone, I just look at my phone. It reminds me of my mission, what's my goal. And it's helping a little bit. I think I need to probably focus a little more, but I feel like it's hard to remember that, right?
You could argue for our channel that we should be considering more the fact that we've got teenagers on the boat, and we could probably reflect on that more. How's this moment affecting the boys and the girlfriend and the friend of our boys and the whatever? And is this a good thing? Is this a great thing? Is this I don't know. I mean, we don't do that a lot. We don't kind of acknowledge that.
Well, I think it's interesting, again, referring back to Holly, because I just found this, just talked to her this morning, and the conversation was just absolutely incredible. And I found myself thinking, like, she's never looked at her analytics at all, doesn't look at other channels, doesn't study editing. And like, you know, you see someone like that, and you're right, Rachel. It can be a bit friggin' disheartening. It can be disheartening. But then I found myself thinking, like, do you think there's a possibility of like overanalyzing? Like, I know analytics is supposed to be there to be useful, but when we're sitting here in this vlogging world where we are the cell, like you're the brand yourself, I almost wonder if over analyzing everything can take away from just expressing yourself.
Yes, well, I have to say we never looked at our analytics for the first maybe 100 and something episodes, did we?
No.
Didn't even know what analytics
No.
were. We didn't, never knew. And then once you start looking, it can be really disheartening. You know, when you go, well, this one's 10 out of 10. Why is this 10 out of 10? This should be 1 out of 10. You can't always make the best one every week. And I don't like to look and see where it's faring. Once it's gone, and I hope it does well. But
for a while the other probably still is a big hit, where people put a camera in a train and just let it run for hours, and it just explodes. People just want to watch out the window a scene from a train for an hour or two. Have you heard of that?
Mm-hmm.
Why? So there's got to be something taken away from that, you know, because I do wonder if we sometimes just go a bit too much too quickly sometimes in our storytelling.
Yeah.
from scene to scene. Maybe we can learn to take a breath a bit more. You know, you alluded to it with your anxiety scene, or, you know, the moment that you'll allow a bit more time for it to just whatever the scene is, whether it's a beautiful moment or a sunset. And maybe, you know, over analyzing as we perhaps over analyze, and as a result you end up thinking you need to chop a bit more, rather than just sit there and watch a scene.
Well, okay, so here's another perspective to that, though. So I'm interviewing The Wayward Life on Friday, and I don't know if you guys have heard of them. They're a smaller channel, like 2,000 something subscribers, and the woman who does all the filming, Taryn, she was a professional photographer before she became a videographer. And the conversation we're going to have on Friday is about how photography transfers and what things should people consider when they're buying their cameras and stuff like that. And she's got heaps of information to share. I'm so excited about this. But one of the things that kept coming up that I'm learning as well, because I've got so many lessons that I'm processing right now. And I'm every time I talk to a different channel, like it cements a little more. But her argument was that it's not that there's something that's right or wrong. It's about what type of audience do you want to attract, right? And so Holly's thing really is that, like, she doesn't want to attract someone who, like, you know, wants a lot of editing, because she's not really, like, she doesn't want to put that work in. She's single-handing. She has to do all the bit work herself. She really wants to enjoy it. And she was kind of like, if it doesn't work, then I don't care. Like, she's not really attached to the outcome. So she was like, I was going to not edit it at all. And therefore, like, if I am successful, then screw it. Whereas The Wayward Life, when she was describing her camera choices, she said, I really want my audience to feel really connected to nature, because nature is something that has been so you know, impactful to me, and I want them to see that art in the way I take my footage. So she's like, it's really important that when I choose my camera, I'm getting them as close to nature as possible. And what it got me thinking about is that, what kind of audience do I want to attract? And if I'm editing a lot and looking at my analytics, or I'm not editing a lot or not looking at my analytics, there, as a result, I'm going to get a specific type of audience. And that's kind of the perspective that I've had lately. And I'm testing this. We'll see how it goes, but I'm curious what you think about that.
Yeah, I mean, as I was saying, I try and edit to the best of my ability. We're trying to improve our camera work, you know, the angles we take, keeping it camera still, Robert, and try and produce the best that we can produce. I don't know that we're thinking much about. We think much more. We think about the audience that we already have. We're not very good at thinking about catching a new audience, and that's our problem. We do have a loyal amount of people, and we almost cater for them without thinking about, you know, capturing more people.
Yeah, the thinking is that, look, there's a certain number of people who really enjoy what we're doing. So if that's that many people, then surely there's more of those people out there who would enjoy it as well. So do we need to change anything?
Yeah. I'm reading this book called The E-Myth, and by Michael Gerber. And he talks about how when a lot of people start their own business, and I think of YouTube as a business, and I think that if you want to be successful, you really should. And he talks about how we oftentimes, when we get into our business, we become the technician, where we're doing. And we often did this, or we chose this role or this job or this business because we didn't like being told what to do when we were at our jobs. And that's kind of why we want that freedom. But if you want to run a successful business, you also need to have two other roles that you play, which is the entrepreneur, which is always looking at improving your business, and then the manager, which is the one that's keeping you on task to the tasks that actually help your channel grow. And I found that for a very long time, I kind of got like locked into improving my editing, improving my angles, telling a better story. And I was being that technician where I was like, I want to make a better video. I want to make a better video. And I find myself in the last 4 months kind of like zooming out a little bit and being like, okay, I'm at a point where actually I think my stories are pretty good. My editing's pretty good, and I'm still not growing. What else is happening here? And that's where I'm at right now, where I'm trying to like look at the bigger picture of like, okay, well, how are other channels growing? And what are they doing? Like when you see someone like Holly and she's got 72,000 subscribers, it's obviously not the editing. It's not, she doesn't tell like an amazing story. She's a pretty attractive like character. Like you want to get to know her. She's brilliant in that way, but what else is happening there? And that's been an interesting place to like start asking those questions of people.
That's exactly where we are at the moment. Well, that's where I feel that we are. We've concentrated on those angles and those editing and doing the best, but that's not working. So what is it? It's got to be something else. And that's where I'm trying to find out, what is it? What do we need to do more of? And one thing I am changing, which I don't think we do enough of, is trying to show us, I don't know, who we are. I mean, we show one part of ourselves. We can't share everything, but just get to know us a little bit better. Even though we've done 200 episodes, I don't know that I've really shown us. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
More just the quieter moments when nothing's really going on. I'm trying. We're not very good at picking up a camera at those points. Most of the stuff has always been the action times or telling a bit of history, because I love that side of it. But I'm wondering if it's to get to know the person better, is, like, so with Winterby, that she just shows who she is. She doesn't edit it. This is me. There you go. If you don't like it, then yeah. So I'm trying to show more of.
It's interesting to me that your brain just went there, because I guess I was thinking like even like more outside of the video. So when I asked Holly, like, what have been some of the things that helped her grow the most, she said collaborations. And I was like, I was surprised because I thought it was going to be like her personality or something like that. And she's actually the third person who has said that to me. And you guys said that it helped you grow as well. And I find myself thinking like, that's what I need to do. I need to move towards collaborations, because if your videos aren't discoverable as they are for whatever reason, then pretty much the only way to grow is pick up on other people's audiences, is kind of my thought.
But where we are in the moment, there aren't that many YouTubing things, and I don't want to piggyback on somebody else. It was great with Zatara, but I felt that it was more of a friendship as well, and we were really lucky that they mentioned us, but I would never expect them to mention us and to say, I don't. So I mean, that's just me. I don't want to just kind of, hey, can we come and sell with you so that we can get a bigger audience? If we collaborated, it would always be with a bigger channel, I guess. And what have we got to offer them?
And that was an interesting part about talking to her. It was like she's collaborated with channels that are like way bigger than her, and she was kind of like what's the loss for them? Like, even if they collaborate with a smaller channel, like collaborations are an easy win-win. And she's like, I get your audience, you get mine. It might be less, and that sucks, but like, as long as it's like not massively bigger, it's always a win-win. And I think it's easy to get in a place where we're like, I'm taking from you, but I don't know if that's necessarily the case.
So the question of collaboration is then, can you do the collaboration if you're not in the geographic same location? There must be ways you can still collaborate from one side of the planet to the other.
It's definitely something I want to start exploring more. Like, it's come up enough in conversations as people saying like, this is how you grow, that I'm like, okay, well, I want to teach people this, because I'd actually heard this when we first started. It was advice that was given to me, but I was like, oh, like, yeah, I'll collaborate at some point, and just kind of like slipped out of my mind. But now the number of times it's been mentioned in a conversation as being like people's biggest growth period, I'm like, okay, there's something here. There's something here about collaboration. So obviously, like lately, I've been getting into more of the business side of things. I've got like so many business books behind me that I could show you, and I'm part of this community of creators, and the whole thing is about monetizing. And the biggest thing that has been coming up more and more lately is if you want to have stability and you want to make good money, you have to create a newsletter. everyone's saying that you need an email list, and that has come up so many. I would say that's probably the number one thing that I have learned is like, you need to get yourself a newsletter if you want any kind of sustainability, because algorithms change. You don't own this. And there's a difference, they say, between like discoverable platforms, like anything with an algorithm. So Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and then anything that's you own your property. So like if you have a podcast that's not discoverable, or an email list that something that it's your asset that you will always take with you. And that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this thing right here, is because I can own this audience that's interested in this stuff. But have you guys thought about doing that at all, or is that on your mind?
Not until now. It wasn't.
Well, actually, one of our patrons did talk about that we should get an email list actually going up and running.
But I always think, well, what do you do with those email lists? What does that entail, and what will you? I don't know enough about that.
Patreon is kind of that format, isn't it? Because you're communicating directly with that audience.
I would just say, like, what I've learned about it is, if you don't want to just create email lists, right? You want to create an email list with a specific purpose. So I had been thinking about creating email lists for the longest time. And you guys will know that I just launched my newsletter, but I held off on launching it until I knew what I wanted to sell eventually, because I want to build an audience that would buy that. Like if I'm talking about like adventure all the time, and like I went to this place and that place, well, those aren't necessarily people who want to buy or want to start a YouTube channel. And so I might end up building an email list of people who are like nothing to do with that. The content's going to be irrelevant. And then when eventually you start to sell the product, that they're gonna be like, well, I don't care about this. But now that I've got this product in mind, that's when I decided to finally launch it. So that's the only thing that like the advice that I've been given is like, keep in mind, like, where are you going with this? What's the end game of why you're creating it? And then using it as a trust building thing. Like I'm hoping that, throughout this newsletter, I can build enough trust to, when it gets time to sell the course, that people will say, okay, well, she's someone who actually gave us a lot of free value. And if there's something that she's selling, then we've built this trust together, because they say that, trust is the biggest currency in the creator economy.
You can see successfully, Zatara's doing that very successfully with Chris, who's the creator of this sailing, the blue water sailing thing they're doing. It's called Blue Water Sailing Course or something like that. He contacted Keith to see if he'd like to promote it on his channel. And they work together on that side of it. But Chris does all the donkey work. But he's created a really audience specific product. People who want to go cruising, people who want to go sailing.
The information, how you know before you go.
And it's really going well.
And it's a little bit tough, because there's quite a few channels that provide some kind of like how to go blue water cruising something. Like I think Ryan and Sophie do something like that, and La Vagabond has as well. And it's like, how do you choose that product that is unique enough that you can actually sell it? And I think to some extent I've gotten lucky that I've seen this gap in the market, but you almost have to be like, find something that no one else is doing to some extent,
or do it better.
Yeah, I've said this a million times, and I'll keep saying to everyone, like, I think evergreen's the way to go. I truly think that like all of the research I've done keeps pointing back to that. Like, viral is not a strategy. Most people won't go viral. It's just not. There's just too much competition, and it's a little. In one way, it's disheartening, but another way, like when you start to look at that way, and you're like, okay, well, I'm probably not going to go viral. Then you're like, okay, well, that doesn't mean it's over. It doesn't have to be over just because of that.
It's great thinking, actually, because it can be demoralizing if you think if everything is targeted at getting viral, because it's just it is unrealistic.
And that's the way with the children starting. I do because their brains aren't quite as resilient as ours. We've had lots of knocks over the years, and kids just, if you don't make it the first time, what that can do for you.
All right. Any last words to someone who's thinking about doing this? They want to start a YouTube adventure channel, a YouTube sailing channel, hiking channel, whatever it is. What would your advice be?
I'd say go for it. Maybe do some research before you start. Knowing what you're getting into, know that can you stay the course? Because it is very difficult week after week producing this video from nowhere, well, just from whatever you're doing. And I know that's even for Finn on Zatara, he's done some amazing first videos, but then he's had to have a few weeks off because he's like, well, I haven't got any material. But doing it week after week after week after week after week is not easy.
Mm.
So as long as you know what you're letting yourself in for, I think go for it. Yeah. Good
You know,
luck.
I don't know if this is a fair call to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. But when we started out, it was really, or Rachel in particular started out, it was to produce videos for the family and friends.
Mm.
And that's fair enough. But in reality, I kind of wonder if we had gone in with a more focused mindset of the business mindset. So, right, we're going to start this channel and we're going to do it because we want to make our lifestyle sustainable, which it is not at the moment, but we still are striving to try and make this because we are, I think maybe we would have approached it slightly differently.
Yes, I wish we'd known a few more things that we know now, and even now we don't know enough. So
Yeah.
do your research before you start.
And you've said something just before too about your newsletter. You've held off doing it, and I was impatient, and I should have let Rachel get at least half a dozen, 10 episodes under her belt before we released one. That was a big mistake. I said, no, let's throw it up there.
And I was like, don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah. So I reckon
And
get it under your belt, get them finished in the box before you release your first ever episode. I think if you can get a
Give
dozen.
yourself a cushion. We
Yeah.
have no cushion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you were saying like that you wish you'd planned more to some extent. And I think one of the things that we experienced, it sounds like you guys experience the same thing, is that there hasn't really been a voice in this space for adventure creators. And like that I'm so excited to potentially like make this grow, because I remember when we were trying to get started, we went and watched all of the videos possible. And there were a couple of creators who created like a what to know before you start your YouTube channel, but a lot of it was like looking at the comments. And I have found that there's a lot of really helpful people who want you to succeed, but there's a lot of people who have preferences about channels that are not helpful. Like people say, oh, I hate tits and ass content. And the reality is that it works, right? Like, so should you not listen to people because a couple of grumpy old men were like, I hate tits and ass content? Like, people love, and I think the biggest thing for me that I'm learning is like, I more often put clothes on before I take clothes off. Like normally I'm in a freaking bikini and I'm putting a shirt on so I don't seem like that content. Or you'll have people say, oh, I hate when people have a baby. And it's like, Delos is actually doing really well. People have said that they're, they're more family friendly. They're not swearing as much. They feel like they can watch it with their kids and it's super relatable. Or I'm trying to think of some other examples, but I basically found that listening to the viewer, it can be very, very helpful, but oftentimes they don't know the reality of what it's going to take. And I think if you go in with a plan, you're going to be better set up. And that's not something we ever even thought about. We never thought about that at all.
No, we thought it'd be a lot easier. We just make some videos and they'll take off and we will be wonderful. We didn't think it through.
Yeah. Well, you're helping people by being on this. It's going to be free. It's going to be accessible to everyone. And I hope it's going to be useful. And I super appreciate y'all's time. So
No,
Thank you, Daniela. Appreciate that. We wish you all of love what you're doing. Always
Yes,
have.
we do.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for watching this podcast episode. I really, truly hope you found value. And if you did, please go give me a 5-star review on whatever platform you're listening to this podcast. It really helps a lot, and it also helps me reach more creators out there. And I'll see you in 2 weeks.